Calvin Ridley looks like he hasn't missed a beat. Brandon Aiyuk is looking like the clear wide receiver 1 in San Francisco, and Tyler Allgeier might be able to hold his own with Bijan Robinson in that backfield this season. Let's look at the headlines from this week. Number 1, football is so back. Like, it is so back. With that said, a lot of big things. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to continue to see an increased workload. So make sure that you are not selling Jahmyr Gibbs. In fact, who's going to be later on this video as well. Jahmyr Gibbs, Dan Campbell just straight up came out and said, look, like that was his first game. We're going to ease him into this. He's going to continue to get carries. So obviously he flashed a little bit, but that was kind of one of the highlights from the Thursday night game.
Yeah, I mean, he was wildly efficient too. Everything he did in college, he did in the NFL for the Lions game 1. While it was limited opportunity, it was still 7 carries for 42 yards, which is really good average there. And then 2 for 2 on targets and receptions for 18 yards. Again, 9 yards per reception, which is exactly what he did in college. So that was really nice to see. He looked electric out there.
What do you make of the Bijan-Tyler Allgeier split so far?
I think not concerning yet. I think this is what you would expect from an Arthur Smith offense and just any offense in the NFL. You have a rookie running back or a rookie really at any position offensively coming into the NFL week 1. He's probably going to be splitting time with the veteran, with the more experienced running back in that offense in Tyler Allgeier, who really held his own last year. I mean, he had over 1,000 rushing yards last season and he really played very well. I still think he'll be an effective weapon in that offense, but I think Bijan will continue to pull away from Allgeier from a production perspective and start to take all of those red zone opportunities.
I mean, it's pretty clear Arthur Smith does not care about your fantasy team.
No,
we
he
already
definitely
knew that.
doesn't. But
and I don't think he cares about draft capital.
Bijan was still...
Bijan was great.
He's going to finish as a top 12 producing running back.
I mean, here's the thing, though. While they're both maybe startable in fantasy now, their receivers got no work. I mean, Drake London literally got no work.
And I think that's the silver lining with Bijan Robinson. If you really are concerned, which is fair, about Tyler Allgeier taking away from Bijan, I really don't think it's ultimately going to matter that much because all they're going to do is run the ball.
That's what it looks like.
Ritter threw the ball 18
I legitimately
times.
think Tyler Allgeier is startable every week. That's what I think.
I think he is.
So, Zay Flowers looked pretty freaking good. I think he out-targeted Odell Beckham Jr. and he out-targeted Rashad Bateman, I think 10-3 both ways. So, again, we thought Zay Flowers would be the wide receiver 1 in that offense. He is going to be. He had quite a few fantasy points as well in PPR leagues.
10 targets, 9 receptions for 78 yards, which was good for 17.7 fantasy points.
Yeah. He could continue to get a lot of targets, and if he does,
good for him.
Yeah, he's gonna be good. Go
ahead.
ahead.
And I will say, and this is something we'll touch on more in the injury segment, but the injury of J.K. Dobbins, I honestly think is really going to help the passing game as a whole in Baltimore, where you're going to have Gus Edwards being the lead back there, or they'll just go back to another committee backfield system like they have had in the past. But this is really going to help everyone in that receiving game, and that's by default going to help Zay Flowers. And do keep in mind that Zay Flowers put up this production with Mark Andrews out this week. So expect that to go down a little bit, but maybe even out as the weeks go on because Dobbins is out for the season. Not like he had a ton of rushing upside or receiving upside, but they're going to have to focus on passing the ball a lot more often now.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah, so our next guy is going to be Calvin Ridley. And yes, we told you that Calvin Ridley was going. I think in our rankings, we had him as a top 16 wide receiver in our rankings going into this week because we knew the Colts secondary was really bad. And we knew, even though we questioned what he would do going into the early weeks of the season,
that he's probably going to have a good first week.
He was probably going to have a good first week back. And he did. He put up, I think, 20 points or just a little bit more than that, over 20 points in his first week back. I mean,
24, I think.
He answered a lot of questions that we had, and he started really strong. 20 of those points were in the first half. He really tapered off at the end in the second half, but I think you got to be looking for him to probably, I don't want to overreact, but he's probably going to be the alpha there. I'm a little bit worried about Christian Kirk, probably not as much as some people will be. A lot of people are going to be low on Kirk after this week, and we got to remember, I mean, Lawrence was very off for what we're used to with Lawrence. He threw 2 interceptions, or he turned the ball over twice. And honestly, Lawrence did not look like he was on his A game in week 1.
Year,
so
Lawrence
I think, as you see the year progress,
but be careful. Do not be the guy that takes a victory lap on Calvin Ridley after week 1. We're not going to take our L on Calvin Ridley just yet because we were lower on him than consensus. And after a couple weeks, if we see a large enough sample size, we're going to be like, hey, we missed on that one. Yeah. But again, we can't take victory laps on any of our guys after week 1. No. And it's really bad taste to do that. So another guy, Brandon Aiyuk, who we told you we weren't aren't drafting a whole lot of, he had like 32 fantasy points in week 1. So that's another one we're going to have to monitor. But he looks like the wide receiver we all knew, and we've admitted he was the best wide receiver there. We thought Deebo Samuel would be a higher scoring fantasy asset. In week 1, that was not the case. He had 2 touchdowns. It was Brock Purdy's favorite target, even more so than George Kittle, who only had about 6 points. So he looks pretty good. That's going to be one to monitor. But at this point, it's looking like if you drafted Brandon Aiyuk, you got pretty good value.
Yeah, but the question was not Aiyuk's ceiling and what he could do here and there. We just want to see consistency. We want to see this on literally.
Which again, that's why you can't
points,
victory lap after week 1, like for these guys, because you have to see consistency in order to victory lap on them, any of them. Yep. So go ahead.
Anthony Richardson. Pretty much, by far the best looking rookie quarterback in week 1. When you're looking at what CJ Stroud did and what Bryce Young did, Bryce Young really struggled, and his yards per attempt were like buns. He's like 3.8 yards per attempt, I believe.
Which we saw coming. Stroud, you were high on Bryce Young, and you even said, I think he'll have a rough year.
Yeah. And CJ Stroud actually threw the ball 44 times going into week 1, and Nico Collins was the alpha. So that's something to keep an eye on. Nico Collins seemed to be that guy, at least in week 1. I think that could be shaken up as the season progresses. But Anthony Richardson, he threw the ball 37 times, way more than we ever expected him, especially right off the bat to ever do.
He looks really good.
And everyone's calling Anthony Richardson, he's going to run for 800, 900 yards in the year.
No.
I don't think so.
No.
He only rushed for 40, and a lot of that was
500 yards?
Maybe. Yeah, but he's a guy that wants to stay in the pocket, wants to climb that ladder.
And moved in the pocket well.
And just like we thought, again, we're not going to take a victory lap here yet, but Michael Pittman was the focal point of those targets, getting 11 of those targets.
He will continue to be.
And he, for 96 yards, and the man just was incredible.
So
he got all of those short to intermediate targets that we expected from him, and he even took one of those, I think, 30 or 40 yards to the house. So he looked pretty solid, looked like the most consistent option out there when Josh Downs actually out-targeted him in the first half. But pretty good week for Michael Pittman, 23 points. Excited to see what he does in the future.
On the same note, don't touch any of the Indianapolis Colts running backs, please. I watched Deon Jackson today. Not only that, I watched their run block.
Yeah,
their run blocking was awful.
We missed on Deon. For starting him. I did.
You missed. I was going to say, I told people not to start him.
Yeah, you're right.
I wouldn't touch Evan Hull. I wouldn't touch Deon Jackson. I'm not touching Zach Moss next week either. And then we have Justin Fields, ... What was his final stat line? I missed most of that game. We're not saying anything.
Less than 200 passing yards. Less than Anthony Richardson. He threw an interception.
Did they have a touchdown? Did they end up scoring a touchdown in that game?
Yeah, but Roschon got it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So Justin Fields did throw the ball 37 times, so that's as good. Much as Anthony Richardson for 24 completions, and he did break the 200-yard mark, just 216 yards. That was a lot. Let me say that was a lot of garbage time at the end. And
still did it.
A touchdown and interception. He did do it, though. And fumble lost as well.
How about DJ Moore? I'm curious about DJ Moore.
2 targets.
Okay, well,
Mooney took the target.
That will be interesting to
there.
watch. It is better that Fields is getting more of high volume passing there, and honestly, him going over 200 yards, that seems like it's at least a small step up from where he was starting last year. So we have that to monitor. Roschon Johnson gets 5 targets and has 4 receptions.
Good for him, man.
Let's go, Roschon. We love that.
Yeah, that is
keep an eye on him.
What we're looking for.
We're not necessarily going and sprinting to get Roschon off the waivers this week, but he could be soon, depending on how quickly he moves up the depth chart. Chris Olave. We had ranked too low.
And Roschon had 7 targets, by the way.
Dude.
Yeah. 7 targets, 6 receptions. Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It makes up for Charbonnet having almost nothing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Did nothing.
Terrible.
Chris Olave, we had him ranked too low. He won't be ranked too low next week. He's a boss. He is all that. He's going to perform anyways. Go ahead.
Christian McCaffrey went off. There were a lot of questions with CMC going into the year and probably will continue. How much from a workload perspective will they take away from CMC because of his injury history? And I think he kind of just laughed in the faces of all of those people week 1 at least. A ridiculous amount of volume. I think he put up 25 points and absolutely not slowing down, showed no signs of slowing down, had a really nice breakaway run. Yeah, he lost a fumble, but whatever. In fantasy, he blew the defense out of the water in Pittsburgh. So looking really good there. Really excited. That pick is going to pay off if you're taking him top 3. I predict for the rest of the season. I don't think he's going to slow down. Tyreek Hill is absolutely unreal. 2 touchdowns today. The clear alpha. Go figure. In the Dolphins offense.
So we're recording this Sunday night between the afternoon games and the Sunday night game. So I'm curious to see, did the Dolphins win? Gosh, freaking dang it, dude.
Yeah.
I hate Brandon Staley so much. All right. And I mean, I guess Tyreek Hill, but I love Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek Hill.
Talk about Tua.
Tua Tagovailoa just threw for 450 passing yards, just picking up right where he left off pre-injury last season. This is why we were heavily, again, we're not going to take a W yet. This is just week 1, but this is why we were heavily drafting Tua in best ball and in fantasy in the later rounds, because his passing volume upside is just as high as the guys going 4, 5, 6 rounds ahead of him. And he literally has the upside playing with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill to be a top 5 producing quarterback in fantasy this year, and you're getting him at half the price. This was a great starting point for him at the beginning of this season. Really excited to see what he does in the future.
Yeah, Jakobi Meyers, he did go down with an injury, and it looks like a head injury, so we're obviously wishing him the best.
Which is tough because he had a really good day.
He had a really good day. He's looking like the clear number 2. That said, it's going to have implications for some of the other Raiders receivers and weapons, so we'll talk about that too. Puka Nacua. Wow.
Yep.
Puka Nacua. The clear number 1 in LA until Cup comes back. He had, is that 15 targets?
15 targets, 10 receptions for 119 yards.
I mean, that's like, I can't even believe it. Like, that's crazy. Like, we were high on him. That's crazy.
I would never in a million years have predicted that, and I liked Puka as a rookie going into this year. Like,
yeah, that's a good one by you. Tutu Atwell as well had 119 yards.
Yeah, he's going to be, again, though, he got that from 8 targets, so he's going to be more of a big play guy, probably not relying on him as much as a guy like Puka in the future while Cooper Kupp is out. And honestly, you guys are going to ask us, who's our buys and who's our sells? Puka,
we're going to get there.
We're going to get there. We'll see.
Kyren Williams looked more productive than Cam Akers in week 1. We'll talk about that as well. Packers offense targets Romeo Doubs a lot. Should you sell Doubs? We're going to go ahead and spoiler alert, which you should not sell Romeo Doubs, in my opinion. Nathan, you were telling me to draft Romeo Doubs a lot this year. I listened to you. You were right. I think Romeo Doubs and Jordan Love have a good connection. I think, Christian Watson obviously being hurt this week helped his production short term. But that being said, I mean, it will be really interesting to see how Romeo Doubs fits into that offense once Christian Watson is back. And Aaron Jones also played very well in that game, but he left with a hamstring injury. So he was playing as well as we thought he would. And then Javonte Williams really does look like he's back. 13 carries, 52 yards for 4.0 yards per carry. He also had 6 targets and 4 receptions, so that's good. Rhamondre, on the other hand, he had a dud day on the ground, but he did have 5 receptions for 62 yards, and that was when we had last check. If that game's probably over, if we want to verify that real quick.
Yes, sir.
But those are going to be the headlines. Again, there's a lot to pack in there, and we're not going to have the Sunday Monday night game, but we're going to talk
6
about
6 targets, 6 receptions.
We're going to talk about waiver ads, buys, and sells right now for your fantasy team. So let's get into this. First of all, injuries. Injuries are not fun. J.K. Dobbins, his season is over. That is just a ginormous bummer, unfortunately.
I am so... I feel for the guy as a player and as a person.
Sucks.
It really
and we
sucks.
really liked him as a player.
I am so glad that I never drafted him in fantasy this year.
Nathan.
I didn't do it.
I didn't either. But
I didn't tweet that either. I legitimately didn't.
That was probably Simon.
Yeah.
Deontay Johnson, hamstring injury. We don't know a whole lot about that yet. Yeah. That is tough, though. Hamstrings are tough on old guys. So Dulcich has a leg, as Shane Steichen would say. He's got a leg right now. So he's going to be out, and we'll have to see there. Cortland Sutton looked like the guy when Jerry Jeudy was out. Mm-hmm. So good week for Sutton, but right now Greg Dulcich is going to open the field for Sutton even more. Aaron Jones grabbed his hamstring in the game, so we got to monitor that. And then Jakobi Meyers, he got rocked on a crossing route. So we got to monitor that as well. Let's talk about waiver ads. I'll let you get some of these real quick, but these are the guys we're targeting on waivers. You should be going and making waiver claims when you watch this video.
Gus Edwards, I think
we are taking Gus Edwards over Justice Hill, though, by the way.
That is a big thing. And because Gus Edwards is a more proven guy.
It's either or there.
I'm taking Gus Edwards there, and that's going to be our most obvious waiver ad. I mean, he's going to be replacing J.K. Dobbins. Is he going to get the same amount of volume? Probably not, but you do have to take the shot. You do have to take the chance there. The running back one in the Ravens offense. Tyler Allgeier is going to be our next guy. And I think we kind of missed on Allgeier. We did say that he could make a little bit of noise in fantasy, but we weren't really pounding the table for him. And yes, still have yet to see what he does after week 1. Week 1 can be very fluky.
But he's going to be startable.
He's going to be very startable.
They're going to run the ball
for the future. And we should have known Bijan Robinson is going to be high producing in Atlanta because they run the ball more than anyone else, 550 times last year. And But Bijan isn't going to get all 550 carries. That's not realistic. Allgeier is going to get a bite of that, a significant chunk of that, and enough that you got to start him. Like, you have to start him until he disappoints.
Desmond Ridder,
18 pass attempts,
like
guys.
we told, oh goodness sakes, own both of them. If Tyler Allgeier is available in your league, like, this is our number one for me this week.
We told you to be careful.
This is my number one. Get Tyler Allgeier. By the way, one of on Google of all places, one of the trending searches right now is Gus Edwards or Justice Hill.
Wow.
We've made it clear we are taking Gus Edwards. I've already been asked that question. My brother called me. He's like, I'm going to pick up one of the Ravens running backs. I had J.K. Dobbins. Which one should I pick up? Justice Hill did have the touchdowns today. Gus Edwards had more carries, and he had more yards. We're going to say that Gus Edwards is going to get some red zone carries as well.
Yep.
Gus bust. All right. Rashid Shaheed. Could he be a legit field stretcher for Carr in the Saints? Today he looked pretty good, actually. So I at this point,
whenever
he was good last season at the end there.
Yeah, whenever I hear field stretcher, I just think best ball, and then in fantasy, I'm still avoiding him. Yes, he had 6 targets today, 5 receptions, 89 yards, which was really, really good, and a touchdown. But that is, I'm going to say it right now, that's going to be so hit or miss on a week-to-week basis, especially when Olave is getting 10 targets for 8 receptions and 112 yards. There is a clear alpha there, and it's not Rashid Shaheed. And I mean, you got to look at Michael Thomas too, who he got 8 targets of his own. So, I mean, I think you've got Michael Thomas and Chris Olave to worry about before you have to worry about Rashid Shaheed from a fantasy perspective. So
then the impact on that would be you should definitely be wavering Rashid Shaheed because there will be people in your league who are also trying to do that. And if you win your waiver, you can trade him.
Yes.
That's where we're going.
Yeah, so I'm not saying he's not a waiver ad. I'm just saying don't pick up Rashid Shaheed expecting to start him every single week and being consistent.
Correct.
So,
all right, Puka Nacua, we already talked about, had a ton of targets, a ton of yards. He looked great. He's going to be on the waivers this week. And until Cup comes back, he's definitely somebody you want on your fantasy roster.
Yeah, for a guy that has Cup in a couple of his fantasy leagues, I'm going to be taking him because that's going to help me until Cup comes back.
And as is Kyren Williams. And look, honestly, like, we weren't super high on Cam Akers going into this year. Kyren Williams was getting the red zone work, and he got the touchdowns. He got the fantasy points. I don't know what the exact splits were for the fantasy points, but I do know that Kyren Williams was the most fantasy productive back in the LA Rams offense. The Rams look surprisingly good today.
Yeah, which honestly
Stafford
to me isn't surprising because the Rams are going to start well because they have a bunch of guys that are healthy with the exception of Cooper Kupp. But I mean, Stafford starting an entire season is way up in the air. That defense is just, their production is not going to be sustainable. We know that, especially their secondary. McVay, historically, if you look at the way that he plays Seattle, historically, he has their way or he has his way with Seattle. And I think you're going to see the Rams could start a little bit well and then kind of taper off here as the season
So
progresses.
Cam Akers had 22 rush attempts for 29 yards. He did have a touchdown.
Yep.
But, I mean, Kyren Williams, 15 rush attempts for 52 yards. That's 3.5 yards per carry. Not fantastic, but it's better. Right. And also had 2 touchdowns. So there's also that. So we're going to be wavering Kyren Williams this week for sure.
Yeah.
Kendrick Bourne, he looks like he's pretty much taken over that Jakobi Meyers role in New England.
Yeah, which is a bummer, honestly, for Juju Smith-Schuster. But Juju did have 7 targets today, so that's kind of been our go-to in the New England's offense. But Kendrick Bourne, 11 targets, 6 receptions, 64 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
I think Kendrick Bourne's the 2 there. Wait, the 1. He would. That's
maybe the
even the New England Patriots 1 feels like a 2 to me. Like, it's just like I don't want him, but you know. All right, and then Terrace Marshall, if he is available, he had 6 targets for the Carolina Panthers. So this one's a softer one, but again, if he's available and you can pick him up and you have roster spots, he's a good one to stream. Yeah. Let's talk about our buys. We're buying these guys in fantasy. I'll start with this one, Jahmyr Gibbs. Look, there may not be a market to buy Jahmyr Gibbs. We are totally aware of that. However, you are going to have people that after week 1 are going to say, the Lions clearly are rolling with David Montgomery. And we are confidently telling you that it's not going to be a 75-25 split. Again, Dan Campbell basically straight up said that. We do not think this is a repeat of DeAndre Swift. So his 25% snap share is only going to increase. He had, of his 19 snaps that he was on the field for last week, 12 of them were in the backfield, 5 of them were in the slot, and 2 of them were out wide. So he's taking 7 of his 19 snaps lined up in the slot or out wide. So it shows that they're going to be creative with how they use him. They're going to continue to get him on the field more. He was extremely efficient with his snaps. His offensive grade from PFF was 78.8, so pretty good. People are going to overreact. Again, just send a feeler. Like we have people in our comments that say nobody's selling Jahmyr Gibbs, and then we'll get somebody who's like, I got Jahmyr Gibbs for Kyren Williams and somebody else stupid, Alexander Madison, and we're like, oh wow,
yeah.
So it happens. Send feelers. Next guy.
Michael Pittman, 24 points in week 1, eight receptions on 11 targets, 97 yards and a touchdown. People are still going to be sleeping on him, but it is really clear if you watch that game that Steichen is going to make it super easy for A-Rich. He already has. Pittman is absolutely going to help with that. I mean, when you're looking at Pittman's target quality and where he's getting the ball, like
average depth of target
is like
and
5 to
like,
7 yards.
People are like, oh, his average depth of target is super low. Yeah, it always has been. It was last year too. I mean, Matt Ryan wasn't slinging it last year.
Yeah, which is why we like Josh Downs too, because they're both.
Anthony Richardson looked twice as good today as Matt Ryan looked last year. I'm very.
It's
pleased.
not even comparable, honestly.
Pleased.
Yeah. Then Robert Woods is going to be our next guy. 10 targets, 6 receptions, 57 yards in a game again where CJ Stroud threw the ball 44 times, way more than I expected.
He might be a waiver guy.
He honestly might be a waiver guy, and this is something where. Maybe the reason we doubted Robert Woods and almost considered him irrelevant is because he was so bad in Tennessee last year, and he's such a seasoned veteran to a point where like maybe he should be done playing, and he's been injured so much. So as long as Robert Woods is playing, honestly, I'm comfortable on having him on my roster and potentially investing in him in fantasy because he is the most experienced wide receiver there and the guy that right off the bat Stroud is going to be most comfortable throwing the ball to.
And he was. He had 10 targets, 6 receptions for 57 yards. Second only to Nico Collins. Tank Dell just had 4 targets, so a little bit of a preseason back to earth right there.
Yep.
So James Conner and Zach Ertz are going to be the next guys. James Conner and Zach Ertz, a lot of people are going to be super low on them. It wasn't pretty. The Cardinals looked bad. The offense looked bad. But James Conner had 5 targets today. Zach Ertz had 10. And they had 12 and 8 points. So James Conner had 12. Zach Ertz had 8. So these are going to be guys that are going to continue to be startable. People are going to start to be lower on them because of what they saw today. Take advantage of the recency bias. And then Mac Jones. Mac Jones was 32 of 46 for 288 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Man,
and
nice.
that was early in the game, so he might have finished with more than that. But he had thrown at that point to 8 different people.
Yeah.
I mean,
he had 54 pass attempts.
He looked
for 35
a lot. I mean, in my
yards.
opinion, he looked more comfortable and he looked better than he did last year.
Yep.
So
54 pass attempts, man. That's some wild volume for a guy who's been criticized for his lack of
that's
rushing
wild
upside.
for. I mean, I guess it is Bill O'Brien now, though, isn't it? And
Yes,
that's going to
an
look
actual
very
offense.
different. That's an actual offense.
Yep.
All right, now we're getting to the guys that we want to sell. Take it with a grain of salt. We don't really have like a ton of hard sells.
Here's what I'm going to do too with the sells. We're going to have one sell, which is kind of a chunk of guys. And after that, we're not going to have a ton of sells for you this week because there's
It's
just
week
too
1.
much to iron out.
We can't.
Any of the Colts running backs, which we already
Anybody
mentioned.
wants anything for him?
If anyone wants Zach
See ya.
Moss because Deon Jackson was so bad and Zach Moss is going to come back healthy, sell him.
Evan
Please sell
Hull,
him.
because Evan Hull's the sexy receiving back, sell him.
Sell him. Deon
And
Jackson
was
literally 1 yard per carry.
horrible
1
today.
yard per carry.
Horrible.
He had so much opportunity and he just destroyed the opportunity. It was horrible. That's going to be our sell for the week because that's really the only honestly certain thing that we know from week 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Week 1 was fun, though. And again, we got 2 more games. We got Cowboys-Giants, which has already happened by the time this is getting out. And then the game tonight for Monday Night Football. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. We're going to have more videos coming out all week. So if you aren't already, make sure you have subscribed. I have data that says that 91% of you watching are not subscribed. If you could do that for us, that would be fantastic. We're going to give you these videos, these fantasy playbook videos every week on Sunday, night, or early Monday morning. So that means you're going to have access to who we think the best waiver wire pickups are before any of your league mates if you're subscribed. So make sure you subscribe. Head over to flockfantasy.com/domain if you want full access to our rankings, all of our articles in season, and the articles that everybody else is posting. We've got a lot of content from all the creators over there at flockfantasy.com. When you use code domain, you get 30% off, and you get all of our exclusives, and you get in our Discord. It's a lot of fun. So like I said, flockfantasy.com/domain. Use code domain for 30% off. Thank you guys so much for watching. Football is back. We are so excited. We will see you guys on tomorrow's video. Peace out.